A pleasant good night to everyone. We want to thank you so much for joining us again for another live session here, Business and Finance Bootcamp live session. I am your host, Chantel Neal, and I'm here with my husband,
Shane Neal.
Shay Neal, and we are here again discussing the topic of family budget, the great topic of family budget. And, this topic is always an iffy one. And so we want to be able to take the time tonight to discuss it with you. We want for you to share your questions in the comments as per usual. Tell us what you think and let us get down to business on this one. Now, we want to let you know that whatever we use, whatever we share here tonight is just things that we use. And remember that every household is different. And so you take bits and pieces of what we share tonight and you can incorporate it in your household. Mr. Neil, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, so let's get down to business. All right, now I believe you can hear me well. Please let us know if you can hear us well in the comment section. Just noted that our mic was muted a few minutes ago. Again, we want to welcome you to Business and Finance Bootcamp. And tonight we're looking at the family budget. Please let us know if you can hear us well in the comment section. Yes, let us know if you can hear us well. Tonight we are looking at the family budget, as I said before, and I want to start off with by saying that the budget is the single most important factor. I want to put this one up on the screen. Let me put this one up on the screen. It says here that the budget is the single most important factor among people who win with money. Again, it says that the budget is the single most important factor among people who win with money. What do you understand from this opening quotation tonight, Mr. Neil?
It just shows the importance of if you want to be able to, in terms of overcoming debt, overcoming challenges, if you want to win in terms of money and don't overspend, then the budget is very important.
Of course, and I like the part of this of the quotation. It says it's the most important factor among people who win with money, among people who are doing well with money. And tonight our goal is to do well with money, and our wish is for you tonight also to do well with money. So do not overlook the simple act of putting together a budget. And tonight we want to look at some myths about a budget, and then we want to make sure that we are showing you how to set up a budget tonight. Now, what is a budget? I mean, we've been talking about this. I think we've mentioned budget for a lot here on the program, but I'm not sure if we have really defined what a budget is. What do you understand from what a budget is?
A budget is just a plan in terms of, keeping track of what comes in, what goes out. So in other words, whatever money you make, whatever money you spend, that's like it. That is what make up a budget. All right, keeping track of your expense, keeping track of your income.
All right, you alluded to the word a plan, and you're right. A budget is a plan that shows you how you can spend your money every week or month. A plan. Now, can you imagine getting your salary and not having a plan for what you will do with your money? Can you imagine? And we've been in this seat. Now, tonight is definitely Get Real night, and it's whenever we come on, we always like to be as authentic as possible because the topic of money is not something we talk about a lot. Somehow it's like a taboo. Like there's a sense of shame, when it comes to talking about money. Now, we do not sit here tonight as people who are rich. We do not sit here tonight as people who have it all or have it all together. We are sitting here tonight as couples that are striving to do better, who have come from the pits, somewhat come from the pits. We know what it's like not to have.
Have
We know what it's like
yeah.
to not have a budget, and we know what it's like when you don't have a budget and where your money go,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we want to, as we talk tonight, share our experience as we usually do, share our experience on these topics. Now we have a few people that's already in the chat, and we want to thank you so much for joining us. As usual, we have Noreen joining us. A pleasant good night to you, Noreen. We have Miss Mel. Good night, Miss Mel. And we have Miss Acosta. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, when you think about a plan, before we start to do budgeting, because we struggled in the beginning of our marriage, we struggled with the budgeting thing. And I think a lot of the times when we talk about budgeting, people don't really understand what it is. Does it really work? And I had that question when we started to budget our finances. We would sit down some weeks, we would make out a good budget, a pretty budget, and everything. And at the end of the month, we did not know where the money went.
True.
And so I want us to look at or think about a time before we got on the bandwagon with the budget and got serious about it, what it was like.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you had mentioned earlier, we we would make money and just spend the money and and then be frustrated in the end because you don't know whatever you made for that week or for that month just went just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was frustrating, but once we got an idea of putting together a budget, you find that you're more organized when it comes to money.
Mm-hmm.
You realize that it's less stressful
Mm-hmm.
because now you can keep track of what comes in, what goes out.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole aspect of it is more um, organized and less stressful, and you don't have to worrying about and figuring out where the money is going to come from and so
Yes.
forth.
I want to be the first to say that it's easy to put together a budget. It's one of the easiest things to write down. And I think we get an A+ when it comes to writing down the budget. But sticking to it is the challenge. And if you agree with me, please just put your what you think in the chat. One of the easiest things is to write down the budget, but sticking to it.
True.
How do I stick to my budget? What makes me stick to my budget? What do you think? What is that thing that makes me stick to the budget that I have?
Well, one of the things is that that you're working a plan. Mm-hmm. So you know that I have to stick to this budget because I'm working towards something. Mm-hmm. And for me to work towards something, it means that I have to know exactly what I make and where I'm spending my money. Mm-hmm. Because I need to make sure that I don't overspend. For example, if you're working towards buying a new car, mm-hmm. you have to go on budget because now you need to make sure that whatever you make, you're not spending that there is money for you to be able to put aside to cover or your savings in order to buy that car. So you just have to make sure that whatever you make, whatever you're spending, balance off, that you don't run yourself on reef.
And to add to that as well, your why. Mm-hmm. Knowing your why, knowing the reason why you're putting together a budget or the goals that you have, mm-hmm. why you're putting your budget together, is one thing that will help you to be committed to your budget, to sticking to it. All right? Putting together a budget is easy, but sticking to it is a challenge. And so it takes great effort. It takes determination. You have to be committed. And also you need to remember your why. Mm-hmm. Why are you saving? Why are you getting your monies in order? Now, these are the things, when you answer them, it will help you to stick to your budget.
True.
No, I could remember that we made good money when we were teachers. I was a teacher. My husband worked at the window factory at the time. We made good money, but let me tell you, we didn't have a budget, and so all that good money, we didn't know where it went at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And I'll be the first to let you know, we couldn't even buy our slippers for our feet because we were just spending. As you get that money spends, and you don't know where it went. You don't know what happened to it,
Mhm.
and that should not be the case.
You were
It
just
should
living
not be the
like just
case.
living in the moment, just
Yes.
living in the moment, and know that you have to be taking care of all this. I have this bill to pay, that bill to pay, and whatever is left, we
I
would
just go
figure
and
the
eat,
rest.
go out and eat, or I go. And I'm not saying that none of those things are good, but I'm saying that if you do not tell your money where it should go, it will go
Hmm.
and it will not come back.
And it will go where there's no need for it to go.
Exactly, exactly. So now let's look at our budget for tonight. And remember, you can share with us your thoughts, your comments in the comment section, and we'll do our best to address them. We'll do our best to share them because we want you to be involved in this conversation tonight. Now, when it comes to a budget, one of the things I want to let you know is that your budget fits your salary. It's
Hmm.
for you. What we have on our budget is for us. And so not everybody's budget will look the same. So you have to consider what your expenses are. And I know all our expenses are different. And so you have to make your budget um, suit your needs.
Hmm.
Okay. So the first thing when we're making a budget, we want to make sure that we are listing our income. Now,
Hmm.
I think a lot of times we complicate or we overthink what a budget should include.
Hmm.
And let me tell you, friends, it's very simple. One sheet of paper. That's all you need. A sheet of paper. For me, I have my book. I have a book here. And here is where I write my budget every month. And that way I am able to track. I am able to see what I'm spending. I'm able to, look at my expense, what's coming
Hmm.
in, what's going out. All you need is a sheet of paper and a pencil. Now, on that sheet of paper, you will list your income.
Hmm.
Now, what do I mean by listing my income?
Well, you'll basically put in all the wherever income is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, for example, I have a 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and I know that at the end of the week, wherever I'm working, I'm gonna put that's one income. Let's say I have a part-time job as well with that. That's another income coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I have a cleaning job on the side for a 1 or 2 hours. That's another income. Wherever you're getting your income from, you have to list
Mm-hmm.
those income. All right, you
Whatever
must
little
record them.
extra money comes in,
Hmm.
all of that goes into the pool,
Yeah.
into one bag. Now, we want to let you know that if you're a married couple, your income should come together because remember, you are working together as a
Hmm.
team. It's not separate incomes for the budget. The better your life will be better when both your monies come together
Hmm.
for one purpose,
Yes.
which is for the betterment of the home. So remember that both your finances will come together. And I have a PowerPoint. I have as I want to share my screen here so that you can see um, you can see what I have here. All right. So here is an example. You have his paycheck, which is my husband's paycheck, is 1,500. And then you have my paycheck, which is 1,500. And this is just an example. And then maybe we made some extra monies on the side, which was $500.
Hmm.
And so we put both of them together. I believe this is week 1 and week 2.
Hmm.
Put both of them together and it comes up to 6,500. Now, the $6,500 that we have there is the total income.
Hmm.
The $6,500 is the total income. My salary plus his salary plus the 500 extra dollars that came in. Maybe you cut a yard.
Hmm.
Maybe you rented out some chairs if that's a side business that you have. Maybe you baked some cakes. That's a side business and that's extra money that comes in. Now that's your total that you have for your budget. Now, Mr. Neil, you have some people who get paid weekly.
Hmm.
And then you have some people that gets paid monthly. We want to make sure that before we go on, we are clearing up how you make money, how you make a budget for somebody who gets paid weekly and for somebody who gets paid
monthly.
monthly? Explain to our audience.
Well, what you can do, the best, you work with what's, you don't want to do two separate budget. For example, you don't want to say, okay, my husband get paid weekly, I'm going to do a weekly budget there. You want to do one budget. So what would be best is to do one budget at the end of the month, which is much easier than for you to do a weekly budget. All right, because when you get at the end of the month and the wife brings in her salary, which is at the end of the month, or more likely a teacher's salary, then that's another thing you can throw off the budget. But when you wait until the end of the month where the money comes in, so whatever you make for that week, you know that, guess what, this has to be used for, or put aside for the end of the month. Now when you reach end of the month, you will have the 4 weeks that you have worked for plus your wife's salary, which will give you one total salary. And from that, it is easier for you to create a budget from that. All right.
That's right. And then you need to ensure that all the monies are in one place.
Yes.
Ensure that all the monies are in one place so that when it's time for budget time, you are ready to go.
Yes.
Now, right now it's May 30th, so it's time for us to get our budget together for the month of June. And so you put together your budget before the month starts so that you know what direction you're going for that month. Don't wait until the month starts, because that's when you just start to spend without having your budget, which is your plan, which is your guide. And so you don't want to fall into that trap of spending on impulse. You have to have your budget together.
And another thing as well, Miss Neil, as it pertains, you cannot, for example, a lot of people get tricked by this. You cannot say for the end of the month or the end of the week, I'm going to make $500. And you know that somewhere you have done something that will affect that 500. You have to be realistic. For example, let's say I get paid every 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks I make $1,000, just for argument's sake, $1,000 every 2 weeks, right? My wife get paid, she make $2,000 a month. I know that every 2 weeks I'm supposed to be bringing in 1,000. Now I cannot say, oh, this week, next 2 weeks I'm going to bring $1,000 when I know that I have missed a couple of days from work, or I have been, or let's say I have.
You know that you have credited some food from the food lady,
or I have credited food, which will have to be deducted from my salary. No, you have to be specific in what you're bringing home, because while you're projecting to say, okay, you know what, at the end of the month we're projecting to have $4,000 to budget with, and when at the end of the month and you wrote those down and you start doing a deduction at the same time, and at the end of the month you don't have 4,000, you don't have 3,500, then it will affect the budget. You have to go back and readjust the budget, which will have to be cutting from here and cutting from there, and then you find yourself.
It's a full headache. It's a full headache. So the first step in putting together your budget is to list your income. And so far, we've learned that we have how much income coming in our example that we're using tonight.
We have
6,500. That's the total income. Now the next step is to list your expenses. On your sheet of paper that you have, you're going to write down all the things you are spending on. All the things that you are spending on. It says now that you've planned for the money coming in, you can plan for the money going out. It's time to list your expenses. Think about these main areas that you are jotting down. Think about your 4 walls. Those are your priorities. You need to ensure you have your utilities, ensure you have your transportation, ensure that you have things on your list like food and shelter. Those are the things that needs to be on your budget first.
But
think about your needs.
Yes, apart from that, for in our case, what we do, priority, and for us, priority is giving God back that 10% tithe that is due unto God, that we returning. And so we have the total at the top, how much is supposed to be coming in, and then from there we started what is priority. Priority is giving back to God. God had blessed us with the tithe and the offering. God has blessed us to make this money that we have,
Mm-hmm.
which means we need to return back to Him.
Yes.
And so once we are clear on what we supposed to be returning to God, tithe and our offering, that's where we begin to start subtracting the main thing, like the food and
So your
and so
tithe,
forth.
10% is your
Mhm.
tithe. 10% from 6,500 will give you $650.
Mhm.
That's for your tithe. So you already know $650 coming out of your total
Mhm.
for your tithe. Then now you look at your four walls, your
Mhm.
priorities, your light, your utilities,
Mhm.
transportation, food, shelter. Those are your priorities. Don't go shopping for everything else and you do not pay your utility bills because you will have a ton of shoes and clothes and no way to see them
Mhm.
or nowhere to go in them because your priority was, your wants instead of your needs. And we make a lot of mistakes there too because
Mhm.
we are so excited. We feel like we deserve. I'm not saying you don't deserve. I'm not saying that you don't deserve because you have worked hard. You have worked hard. You have put in the hours, and now you have this money in your hand, and now you feel like you deserve a new dress and you deserve a new shoes. You do deserve, but not every month.
Mhm.
Not every month. I don't think it's something you should be purchasing every month. Maybe once every 3 months, every quarter.
Mhm.
You you treat yourself. You treat yourself, and then you make sure that that's in your budget as well. Now I have here. I want to share my screen again. I want to share my screen again, and I want for you to see the next slide. Now remember, our total was 6,500 income. And now I'm showing you the next slide. It says your first budget may look like this. This is what you will have written down on your sheet of paper.
Mhm.
Giving, which is your tithe,
Mhm.
is $6,650, 10% of 6,500. We don't have
Mhm.
the offering up here, but you can add an extra. You can match the 6,000, the 650,
Mhm.
whichever is your choice. And then of course you have your savings, $200. You have your food, $950. Now, this, remember, your budget is made according to your family.
Mhm.
This, what we're sharing here, is just an example. It's just an example, it's just a guide. Utilities, $325. Housing, transportation. You need to make sure that you have your insurance. You need to make sure that you're paying toward a debt. If you have childcare, you put that on your budget as well. And your miscellaneous, you put
Mhm.
that on your budget. And of course, our favorite slot on
Fun
the
money.
on the budget is your fun money. Now, your fun money. What is your fun money, Miss Ania?
Or the fun money is that money that you
Pay
that
yourself.
you're paying yourself. Yes, you're paying
Mm-hmm.
yourself, and that money is what you can use to say buy
Whatever you
whatever
want.
you want, because it's like you're paying us, you're giving back yourself. You're not
Mm-hmm.
you're not just paying bills and everything, but there's money there that you can make use of to treat yourself and so forth, apart from entertainment. But you can treat yourself to a nice dress, to a nice shoes, whatever, nice pants. All right, that's where the fun money comes in.
Yes, and of course, entertainment. Now, when you think about a budget, most people think about a budget in a way of, man, I cannot do nothing. It
Mhm.
just have me in a bind.
Mhm.
But that's not what a budget is there for. On your budget, whatever your expenses, whatever you know that you spend monthly or weekly on, you put it on your budget. What's
Mhm.
one thing that we have on our budget that's not on this list?
Um, we have uh,
Vacation. We have vacation on our budget.
we
That's
have
not on this list. Is vacation up there? Would
no
that
no
come under
vacation.
entertainment?
And then we have on our budget, we have
On our budget, we have
education.
education.
Education is another thing.
Uh-huh. And so, like I said, go back to everybody budget will look the same.
Mhm.
This here that we're sharing tonight is only a guide for you.
And just to touch on the education aspect of it, for those who
Mm-hmm.
might say, I mean, what about education? You might not be studying, but your children are going to school if you
Mm-hmm.
have kids. And what that does, let's say every time you get paid, you put something in there. Every time you get paid, you put something in the education fund. Whenever it's time for you to pay, however you pay your school fee,
Mm-hmm.
your kids' fee, whenever it's time for you to pay that fee, you'll always have an excess.
Yes.
that you can take out, and you won't find yourself behind trying to figure out how your kids' school fees will be paid, but
Mhm.
you will have money there, access to go and just say, hey, let me take this out. Let's say, for example, your child need a shirt for sports day.
Mhm.
That's where that money comes from as well. It's everything that has to do with education for that child, or even for yourself, or those who are studying. Right?
Mhm.
So the education fund is very, very important as
Of
well.
course, of course. So, having a plan is your mind. It's an
Mm-hmm.
ease for me. When we got on board with putting together a monthly budget, and we've always do it monthly because that's how we are paid by the month. If you get paid weekly, then you put together a weekly budget. For us, we do a monthly budget, one time per month, which means that when we budget, if food is 15,000 Jamaican dollars, then you will multiply 15,000 by 4 to give you the amount of food money you will need to set aside for the month. Did you get that?
So that's 15,000
If your
times four.
weekly
So that will give
grocery
you.
budget, if your weekly grocery expense is 15,000 Jamaican dollars, you will multiply it by the amount of weeks in the
Mm-hmm.
month.
It's
Some weeks
four,
have some weeks have
four,
four,
some
some
have
weeks
five.
have five, and that total that you get will give you the amount of money that you will need for the month,
Mm-hmm.
which means that there should be no way you are running out of money for groceries at the end of the month, because you should only be spending 15,000 Jamaican dollars. Now,
Per
we're in
week.
Jamaican because we're in Jamaica. But wherever you are, if your grocery expense is 150 Belize dollars, you will multiply 150 Belize dollars times the amount of weeks for the month. And that's the amount of money you will set aside for the month, for groceries.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yes.
All right. So that's how it's done. That's how it's done. Is there something in the chat there? Okay. Nobody there. All right. So let's continue.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have written down our
Expenses.
expenses, all the things you spend money on. We've written them down. The next step is to subtract your expenses from your income.
Now this one is very tricky because as you're subtracting, you have to look at what you get um, at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're subtracting now and your expense is more than your income, you're in big trouble.
Yeah,
It means you are already starting the following the new month in
in
red.
red. Mm-hmm.
And if you're starting in red, it means you owe. It means you'll have to borrow to put on top of what you already owe. So, and hence the reason why having a budget is very important, because
Mm-hmm.
it keeps you in line with what you make and how you spend what you make.
And it keeps you in line with showing you
Mhm.
what your lifestyle should be and what you
Yes,
can really
what
afford.
afford. There are some people who I don't know how they do it, but there are some people who, I mean, they eat every day. They buy food or they credit food every religious day. They work from Monday to Friday, and they have not one day they decide to take lunch. Now look at it. If you do the math, a plate of food, let's say for Belize, a plate of food costs what? $10 for food.
Mm-hmm.
That same $10 could give you two lunch. I mean, you
You can
can
make your
if
own
you're if, if
lunch.
you make your own lunch, you can buy one pack bread, and you can buy a tuna, and you can
Sandwich.
make sandwich for that $10 will give you 2 days worth of a lunch,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to look, not because your co-workers are eating and you feel as though you don't want to, shame take you, and you don't want to prepare your lunch and bring your lunch. You decide to credit food knowing that you can afford it, and that's how people literally find themselves on the red side and more on the green side.
Mm-hmm.
You have to live within your mean, and you have to be true to yourself to say, I cannot afford that living, and I'm not going to even put myself in a place, in a situation like that. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to put myself in a place where I know that at the end of the week or at the end of the month, I always have a credit, in the sense that I'm always in the green. It means I've worked for this, I've paid this out, but I still have an excess money that I could save, that I could, help treat myself at the end of the month and so forth.
Yeah, and that's so true, Shane. And I want to just stick up in here for a little bit. I like to live. For me, I like to be as real as you see me. I don't like to live through anybody's eyes, and that's something we really need to take into consideration because we spend most of our lives trying to keep up with others, trying to live up to their standard, trying to have what they have, when you need to live your reality, borrowing here, borrowing there, crediting this, crediting that. That's not the way. If you are working hard, you're making your money, then there's no reason that you should be crediting food, crediting, clothes, borrowing from here, borrowing from there. I mean, these aren't habits that you want to have if you want to win with money. Let people call you cheap. Let them call you cheap. I don't mind because you know exactly the path that you're on. You know that you are working towards a goal. And so people can talk, people can say what they want, but you're delaying gratification. I like to say this line, you're delaying gratification for a bigger prize at the end. You might be cheap to yourself now because you know you're working towards getting a house. You're working towards getting a house. You're working towards getting your education. You're working towards maybe purchasing that car. Maybe you want to buy a piece of land, and so right now you are living on less than you can make so that you can reach to that goal that you have.
I see Noreen post in the chat. She said, these days the grocery monies go up per month because of inflation, and that is so true.
That's so true.
But there's a way that you can combat that as well. One way is that, let's say, for example, you purchase at this grocery store, and you find out that when I purchase there, I am paying $100 every time I buy at that grocery store, and I feel as though that $100 is too much for what I'm getting. So what you can do, you can say, okay, this week I'm going to try somewhere else.
Shop around.
And then you go to another grocery store and you get the same item that you get at that one, but you only spend $80. It means that you're saving an extra $20. And what you can do as well, don't be satisfied with that. You can say, all right, ask individual, hey, where can I get reasonable groceries? And then you go to that grocery store, and when you go to the third grocery store, you find yourself spending $75. So you have to go where your money can, stretch. Don't follow the crowd and say, okay, the crowd buys at Public, so I'm going to be like so and so and buy at Public. No, let them buy at Public. If you have to go and buy somewhere else that's much cheaper, but you're getting the same thing for less, then that's where you need to go. At the end of the day, be reminded that you are working towards a goal. You have a plan in mind. All right, and your plan is not just to blow up your funds. Your plan is to conserve and to reserve what you can reserve. It means if I can save $10 on groceries, if I can save $15 on groceries, it's still a lot.
And maybe you need to take into consideration what you're eating.
Yes.
Take into consideration what you're eating. Maybe you need to change your eating habit. Maybe you're somebody who purchases a lot of meat, for example. Maybe you're somebody who purchases a lot of snacks, or you purchase a lot of junk food or things that you don't need in a budget. So even that, consider scaling down your grocery list. Only purchase things that you need. Go in the grocery store with a list. And that's what I've done for the past, how much years? Almost about a good 10 years. That's what I've been doing.
There are some
and so I've seen progress. I've seen progress because we don't have a lot of money from the beginning, and so I don't have monies to waste. I don't have monies to waste. I am determined because we have goals that we're working towards. We're in Jamaica right now. We're students, and that makes it even worse that we need to condense our funds because we don't have a lot. And so even though we're here, it's not much of a bind because we are disciplined, and a lot of people don't want to be disciplined when it comes to a budget. You have to have discipline. You have to be committed. Work toward, if you want to accomplish your goals, if you want to work, if you want to accomplish your plans, you have to be disciplined. And one way you can be disciplined is by living off a budget. Living
True.
off a budget. No, I can remember when we were working towards purchasing a house. Those were some of the hardest 4 years I can remember. It was just tortilla and beans.
Listen to people, and
Tortilla and
not only
beans.
that. I mean, thing was so tight. Thing was so
Yes.
tight. I remember going to the.
Yes. And
I
we
went
did
to
not
the US.
we did not credit any we did
Mhm.
not credit any food from anybody.
Mhm.
We did not we were not begging around.
Mhm.
We just stuck to just what we could afford it. We ate it for 4 years.
Mhm.
We did not die. Thank you, sweet Jesus. We purchased the house.
Mhm.
But this is what I mean when I say delay gratification. Now we can eat a little bit more because we don't have a mortgage to pay. But it's a sacrifice. It's a
But
sacrifice you must
as I was
make.
sharing, the sacrifice was so much that even I remember even going to the US at one point when
Mhm.
I had a tennis that the tennis wasn't up to par. The tennis really needed to be thrown in the garbage. But at the end of the day, that's I mean I couldn't. I wouldn't say I couldn't do better, but the funds wasn't there because we were working towards something. So if you know what you're working towards, if you prioritize everything and you say, okay, I'm gonna stick to the budget, I'm gonna work with the budget that I have in front of me, and if needs be, um, I've seen some people who purchase ice cream. No, no, be real. You don't need ice cream every week.
Mhm.
You don't need ice cream every
You
week.
can treat yourself.
Treat yourself. Nothing's wrong to treat yourself, right? But you have to be mindful that guess what? I I don't have much, which means I need to live between my means. I need to live. In other words, I need to live. Um, I'm making $100, but I need to live as though I'm making $75,
Mhm. So that you can have a buffer.
right?
You should never be,
Mhm.
your finance should never be at a zero.
Mhm.
You should never say, we always say home boy are broke.
Mhm.
You should never be at a zero. You should always have something set aside for emergency. Now I want to go back to this slide. I want to go back to this slide and I want for you, Mr. Neil, to explain where do we get these numbers from? Are we
Mhm.
just pulling these numbers from the sky? Where are we getting these numbers from?
Mhm.
How are we coming to these numbers?
Well, when you look at the numbers, you can
Uh-huh.
you can see that the numbers are coming. Is what came in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, from both weeks,
Mm-hmm.
my salary and my wife's salary, and also the little extra that we had made on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And so hence the reason why, for example, look at the giving. The giving is a tithe,
Mm-hmm.
and the tithe is at 10% of what of your overall that you had made, right? And so you just break it down, and but this month that you're looking at exactly at the bottom, which is 6,500,
Mm-hmm.
that's the income.
That's the
That's the
total.
total income that came in for the month.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And when you add up all the money, and then when you take that 6,500 and you share it up amongst what is your expense, you'll see that it balance out.
It has to
It
balance.
has to balance. In other words,
You should not be going
mhm,
over. You should not be in a negative. And that's the next slide. You should not be in a negative,
mhm,
which means you're spending more than you make.
mhm,
It should balance out. When you add it up, it should come up to 6,500. Now, I want to add a little bit on how you come up with these numbers. For housing, you know what your house rent is.
mhm,
And so if your house rent is $1,625, you will put that on your budget.
mhm,
This is an example. So that's where you get that number there from. If your house rent is $400, then you know you'll put $400 on your budget.
mhm,
If your house rent is $1,000, then you know you'll put $1,000 on your budget.
mhm,
In this case, this budget here, the house rent is $1,625. Now, for the utilities, it's the same. When your bill comes for the month, you will look at that bill. If it's light, water, whichever one, and whatever amount it comes to, that's the amount you will put on your budget.
mhm,
Now, here it does not break down utilities,
mhm,
but for us, our utilities is electricity, We have butane.
Mm-hmm.
We don't pay for water here in Jamaica or where we're renting. So we don't have that on our budget. But for you, if you pay light, water, internet, all those are utilities. And so you put that amount on your budget.
Mm-hmm.
I explained already when it comes to food. If your food money is 15,000 Jamaican dollars a month, then you multiply it by 4 or how much of a weeks is in the month to come up with the total that you have there.
Mm-hmm.
Childcare, same thing. If you pay babysitter $50 a week, you'll multiply that by how much if it's 4 weeks in a month, and then that will give you your total, which is $200 for the month.
And even with this budget, you can, if you can scale back on whatever, look to see what you can scale back on. For example, if you're paying, let's say utility, and you're paying 325, this month you pay 325. That doesn't mean that okay, I pay 325 this month, so next month I'm going to budget for the same 325. No,
the bill fluctuates.
You can say, all right, I paid 325 this month. Let me see if I can pay less next month. It means that when I leave the room, I won't leave the light on. It means the less, so you just scale back on, maybe this week I wash about 4 or 5 times. Next, for the next week or the next month, I'm going to cut back on the amount of time I wash. That means I'm just going to do one big wash and, cut back. So your plan is to make sure that every month you do your budget, there is something that in other words, your expense is going down and your savings is going up. It means you'll find ways of how you can scale back on your expense.
And when you do that, you'll find that you have a little extra, you have a little wiggle room. And when you have that little extra, that doesn't mean that it's a spending spree.
No.
That means that you're putting a little extra towards maybe a bill that you have there, or you're putting a little extra towards your savings, or your health, whatever. But remember, once you have a little extra, that does not mean that it's time for you to just go and spend it out. Now, the next step, as our time is fastly going down, the next step is to track your transaction. Track your transaction. This may be a little difficult to do, but there's always ways that you can do it. For me, when I don't track my transactions because we use the envelope system. Now you might be saying these two are nuts. The envelope system. What is the envelope system? Can you explain?
The envelope system is
and we've been using this system for how long?
For some while.
For some time. Over 5 years we've been using this system.
So the envelope system is what we are saying from the beginning. So for example, this envelope might say a tithe. So when I subtract my tithe, I'll place it in the envelope. Or when I take out the utility bill, I know what it is. I'm going to place that money in this envelope.
So for example, our example that we're using tonight, example budget is $6,500, and so our tithe is $650. That's what you will take and put into your envelope.
Yes.
Okay, and
then you'll take the food, which is like 900.
900.
You'll take the food, which is the 900 for the month, and you put it in here. Let's look at this. That does not mean that because I have 900 in here, I'm going to spend 900 just like that. I have $900 in here for food, but I'm going to spend that 900 weekly. For those who purchase grocery weekly or every 2 weeks, or even for those who might say, I don't have time to do weekly or every 2 weeks, I can just do the month. Then you can say, all right, I'll just do the month. But be reminded that when you spend that for the month, the money that's in here for food is done. So if you need anything throughout the week, that's another challenge. So what we do for us, sometimes we will spend, here in Jamaica, we end up doing it every week. All right, because where we live, you have to take a taxi to go into town to purchase groceries, and we can't do that. It's time consuming.
Yeah, expensive.
So we have to do it every week on Fridays. But that's how you do it. Whatever is in there, it goes for that specific thing that is written on the envelope. So if it's groceries, it must be used for groceries. You can't say, I have 900 in here, let me take out something and use it for entertainment, or and not only that, but you can go even further. For those who make sufficient money, can say, all right, I want to create an envelope to a poor fund for the needy. And so you have that envelope there, and you can see. So every time you put money in that, you know that, all right, that money is for the needy. Who am I going to bless this week? What am I going to do with this money? I'm planning on doing a little basket, or serving the food or whatever, but that is for the needy. So the envelope reminds you, it subjects you to see that I only can spend what's inside.
Yeah. So tracking your finance might be difficult. For me, I don't have the time to be tracking every penny. So we use the envelope system, and here, just like how you have your categories written on your budget, I have an envelope for each category. Cooking gas or butane. This one here is for rent. Here I have for emergency savings. This one here says special events, entertainment, and yours will have different things because remember, we're two different households. So what we're sharing is just for us. All right, here, this one says food. What we do when we finish writing the budget, like Shane says, whatever the amount is, we put in our envelope. And let me tell you, when that envelope is empty, that means that there's no more spending until the next month. You cannot take from the other envelope to purchase if it's food. So the envelope helps you to keep track of what you have, and it also helps remind you that you are out of funds, so you cannot spend or overspend.
All right, I see some people in the chat. Noreen says, I use the envelope system myself. And he says, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one. All right. We want to say as well, good night to Miss Michelle Sebastian.
Good night, Miss Michelle.
Who is watching from New York.
I tell you, as simple as these envelopes look, and it might be just a mental thing, because it's just envelope with money inside. But as simple as it looks, it creates so much discipline, and we have so much respect for this system because it works for us. It works for us. We monthly we put monies in our envelope, and whenever it's time for us to purchase gas, we go and we take that butane envelope out, and we have the money right in here. We take it out, and we are able to purchase for gas. We're not scrambling here, scrambling there, trying to find the money, to pay the gas man. We have the money there ready. And so this is what works for us. If you want to know more about it, just let us know, and then we will arrange maybe a Google Meet for us to talk a little bit more about it. But that's something that works for us. What works for you? Maybe you use your bank account. Maybe you don't get money in hand and you prefer your bank account to just transfer monies. That's how some people pay bills. They don't get money in hand. They prefer to just wire money or transfer money to the babysitter, transfer money to utilities, and that's fine too. That way, when you get your bank statement, you're able to track and see what you have paid out in terms of your categories. So that's another way. For us, it's the envelope system, and it works.
And as you're separating your funds, and you just tick off and make sure that you know what, all right, this I place money in this, I place money in that, and so forth. It does something to you to say that, hey, I'm actually in control of my finance. I'm actually, just taking it by the horn, and what it does as well, you find that it that stress of trying to figure out, how am I going to survive the next week? How am I going to, you know that, hey, all right, this week is finished, which means that I have 3 more weeks, and I have funds to run me for 3 more weeks in terms of food, in terms of gas, in terms of whatever. I have the funds there to facilitate that. For example, let's say a friend came, comes up and say, hey, let's go to the movie, or let's go here. You don't have to be saying, I don't have any money. You can say, no problem. You can go to your entertainment
Of
envelope.
course.
You can go to your entertainment envelope and say, you know what, girl, like I have money. I have money.
Yes.
It does a lot for you, for your mental
So,
stability, where you can say, you know what, I don't have to rely upon my friend to purchase the tickets or to purchase this, but I have funds for my, because you have been preparing
yes.
for those situations.
Yes, and
as
that's
well.
that's what a budget do. A budget is your plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know you like to eat pizzas on Friday
Mhm.
night, then you make a pizza envelope,
Mm-hmm.
or you begin to make your pizza at home. But if you like to eat out and hang out, then you make a envelope for your entertainment. And weekly, you put a little something in there. You don't touch it until it's time for you to go out, or if you feel like it's time for you to treat yourself. This is like a treat yourself envelope.
And just to add to Miss Neil, is that, you know, sometimes, especially in the winter, you know, when snow, for those who experience snowstorm, or even for Belize, those who have the hurricane is coming along, and you know that you won't get pay. It's not payday as yet, right? And so now you're trying to figure out, where am I going to get money to buy extra groceries to stock up for the hurricane. That, you know, if you are following the envelope system or whatever works for you, you know that, all right, hurricane is coming. I have money put aside that I can take out $100 and pick up a few grocery items that would kind of prepare me for the hurricane.
Yes.
And that's a lot of that's something that has been affecting a lot of people, because when with COVID, when COVID came, and you know, people were trying to they lost their job, and people were trying to figure out, you know, when they said, all right, only those, you know, you can only purchase this item, or, you know, some people couldn't even, they had to wait on grocery bags, they had to wait on handouts, because there was no funds there, right? No funds for them to receive.
And that's really
right?
sad. That's a sad place to be.
And if you were prepared, if you had been preparing, I mean, way before COVID came, I mean, you know that there's funds there. You can go and pull out $200 and say, hey, let me pick up a couple of grocery items, because, you know, to avoid for me not to be out there, you know. So it's just show whatever works for you,
Yes.
you apply.
Yes, but it's high time. It's high time for us to do better. It's hard. We work too hard. We work too hard for when the end of the month come, you can't even eat a ice cream. You work too hard for when the end of the month comes, and it's time for you to pay out. Now you can't even purchase a slippers for yourself. All right. The next step now is to make a new budget before the month begins, and we had alluded to this one in the beginning. Now, when it comes to budgeting, you need to make sure that you are consistently making your budget, writing it down on paper. Writing it down on paper. It's not hard to do. For us, I've already written down our June budget. This is my organizer that I use to keep track of my budgets. And I've already written down my June budget here. Same for you. Get your pen and paper, write down your expenses, write down your income, and as you're paying them off, you tick off what you're paying off, and so there is where that will show you how you are doing financially.
And also, what you can do, you can compare budget. You can compare the June budget, or you can compare the May budget with the April budget to see, you know, your progress. How have you been doing in terms, you know, in May, I made $1,000 and I spent, you know, you look at, just compare to see your progress. How have you been, you know, doing in terms of the budget system? And if you're doing, let's say if you did much better in May than you did in April, and then when June comes, you're seeing yourself doing much better than May. That's when you realize, hey, I'm actually getting a hang of this, and you're seeing your headway, which will motivate you to want to do more and to continue.
That's right. That's right. Well. And as we are winding down the program for tonight, we want to let you know that not every month or every week your budget will look the same. Expenses will come up. Like for us this month, one of the expenses that came up for us was harvest. We did not know that there was a harvest coming up, and so we had to ensure that we had that extra funds to give to the children for their harvest. It did not throw off the budget too much because it was just a little extra, but we were able to cut off some funds from maybe food or something that we had in order to fit in the $1,000 that
Mm-hmm.
we needed. And this is thousand Jamaican dollars that we needed for the harvest. So that's how it works. That's how it works. There should be at no point in time where you are sitting down, you're writing your budget, and your expenses is more than your income. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to sit down and evaluate what you are spending on. Could it be the groceries? Because I know groceries are the number one thing that always kills everybody's budget because of the constant inflation,
Mm-hmm.
and so again, a remedy for that is to shop around or to evaluate what you're eating.
Mm-hmm. True.
All right, so we have Miss Bev in the chat. We want to say good night to you, Miss Bev. Thank you so much for joining us. And Miss Bev said it's so true. So she's agreeing with what we're saying. As we're winding down tonight, I want to ask you, know that we've been doing budgeting for over 8 years, 8 to 10 years. We've been on this budgeting journey. Um, how have you seen the progress?
Well, at first I wasn't really into it. I must say I wasn't really into it. I
And
was.
you'll find that with couples. You'll
Mm-hmm.
find that with couples. Remember, if you're a married couple, you should be working on your budget together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just only the wife's duty, or it's not just only the husband's duty. At the end of the month, both of you come together, you sit down and you look at some of the things you'll need to spend on in May.
Mm-hmm.
Not in May, but in June. So June coming up, you have graduation, you have Father's Day coming up, and all the other daily expenses, you will put those on your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't really into it at first because I didn't really understand the concept, and I thought that it was just an additional thing to to to, to allow my brain to process. But once I saw how it works, once I understood, the whole nature of the budget, I kind of buy into it, and I realized that it's very effective, because it teaches you, um, how to manage your finances. It teaches you that you ought to live on what you make.
Mhm.
You cannot live on money that's in your mind.
Mhm. You can't spend money that you don't have, and a lot of people are budgeting for money that they
Yeah.
do not
No,
have.
you can't. You got to budget for what is sure, what is
Yeah,
coming in.
yeah.
And once you are aware of what is coming in, that's where you know exactly how to budget. So don't budget for $5,000 when you're only receiving 3,000. It will affect the budget. So, and once I learned, those concepts, and I learned and I see the effectiveness of the budget, I kind of
Mhm.
buy into it, and I believe it's very effective. Once you just work on it and you learn, to do more, and you learn how to apply it, I mean, you'll see the benefit of it.
Of course, and I'm glad that you said that because yes, he was not on board. We had many budget times when it was like a little tug and war there because he was not understanding the importance of having a budget. And so I, as a wife, I had to be stiff and stern because I want for a family to be okay and be well, especially when it comes to finance. And so I had to sit down and explain to him, well, we need to make sure that we have two boys now. We need to make sure that we have our finances in order, and that's another conversation we want to have because even after you die, you got to think about you have to prepare for that too.
Mm-hmm.
You need to prepare. You need to have estate planning,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for another night that we will talk about. But for right now, your budget is
Hopefully,
important.
when we talk about that, we'll be in Belize.
That's another thing we need to talk about. What happens after you die. What happens financially after you die. That's a whole other big discussion. But friends, I'm so thankful for this opportunity to be on the live tonight. We are very passionate about this, and I'm praying that we could get to the point where we are able to write books on finance. I don't see a lot of them on bookshelf, but that's one of my goals to write books educating our audience on finance. We are Belizean, we need to sit down and we write about everything else, Christopher
Mhm.
Columbus, but we don't write about finance, and that's the area where we're failing. And so I am praying for wisdom from the Lord, direction for Him to show us where we can begin to write content on finance. It's something that we are passionate about, and it's something that we really want to delve a little bit more into. We're working towards becoming professional financial coaches, and so we want to be able to do some one-on-one with you. And if you are interested in getting more information, we do have a YouTube page. Um, it's called Business Finance Bootcamp, and we'd like for you to, go check it out. Check it out. Check out our YouTube page. We give you monthly information on what happens there. And if you're interested in a one-on-one session with us, then you can email us at businessfinancebootcamp@gmail.com. All right. And so we end the live here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. And we want to say a pleasant good night. And yourself?
Yes, I hope that everything that we have mentioned was beneficial to you.
Mhm.
And try it out. Give it a try. There's nothing for you to lose. All right, give it a try and see how it works for you.
Yes. Have a good night.